Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and you're very welcome back to my mini-series, My Month of Perennials. And in this series I deal with a variety of good garden-worthy plants that I grow here at Douentza and highly recommend. And today we're going to talk about Persicaria, which is an enormous group, but it includes some gorgeous plants. And behind me here on the hill is my Persicaria affinis. So let's just dive in there and talk all about Persicaria. Now, Persicaria is in the Polygonum group and it extends worldwide. It includes some real gems. It includes plants that have amazing foliage. It includes very late, elegant bloomers, and it also includes a variety of plants that are great for very difficult areas. The Persicaria family is actually enormous, and as of February 2019 there was a whopping 131 species listed. So I'm not going to cover everything, as you can imagine, but I will give you some generalities and talk about some of my favourites. Now, the first thing you really need to decide when choosing a Persicaria is whether you're going to go for foliage or for flowers. If you go for foliage, then there are two very good species to look out for. There's the virginiana, one which comes from the States or also from the Himalayas in Japan, and included in that group are some amazing hybrids. There's the painter's palette and there's the Compton's form, which are both really gorgeous with super markings. And there's also the microcephala group, which is a great one to choose if you're interested in foliage. And in there you have gems like Red Dragon, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail further down the line, and also Purple Fantasy, which is another favourite of mine. However, if your primary concern is the glorious late flowers, then I suggest going for a Persicaria in the Amplexicaulis group. And in there you have gems like Firebird, which has glorious pink spires, and also the Alba one, which is my absolute favourite, with very elegant, very slender, tall white flowers in late summer. Sometimes you'll find that Persicaria has received some bad press, and that's usually because of its spreading habit. And indeed, some of the 131 different species out there are particularly vigorous and not something that you want to put in a very delicate border where you've got, I don't know, say Cypripedium hardy orchids that need fussing and finicking around them. You don't want to put something very vigorous like a Persicaria in there. But if you choose the right one for the right position, then it is a great plant. And now I want to talk about one of my absolute favourite Persicarias, and it's Persicaria affinis, this glorious plant you see behind me on the bank. And one of its really great claims to fame is that it's the perfect plant for a difficult area. For a dry, stony bank, you really can't do better. I absolutely love this Persicaria at this time of year. So we're at the beginning of September now, and you can see how it is attaining its full glory. So the flowers on this plant, they start out as a pale pink earlier on in the summer. Then they mature to a dark kind of wine-like red. And then as the season tumbles on out through autumn, we get a black, almost black, a dark brown black. So if you're lucky, you can get all three colours at the same time on your Persicaria. And it makes a fantastic statement when the sun of autumn, which is a particularly glorious light quality, when it actually catches that Persicaria. So how do we grow this glorious plant? And as I said earlier, it's a wonderful thing for a stony, difficult position. And also it helps show off the flowers better because you've got a whole bank of them that kind of acts as a backdrop to the garden. The only disadvantage to this is that in a particularly dry summer, you're going to have to water your bank. Now, in terms of maintenance, the general advice is to cut back after flowering, which I think would be spring, but I never do this, and I think if you look at my bank you can figure out why it would just be such a terrible, awful, difficult job. But not to worry, as soon as the new spires start coming up, then very soon you don't see the old spikes at all. Now this plant is supposed to be semi-evergreen, but I find that generally in winter it loses its leaves and becomes black, so it's not such a great spectacle in winter. In terms of maintenance, again, in spring, what you need to do is to remove any bits of it from areas that you don't want it to be in. So that means, for my garden, when the plant creeps down off the bank and into the back of the borders, in spring I come along with my secateurs and I cut a straight line at the base of the bank and just remove anything that's rooted into the back of the border. And of course that's amazing propagating material to use and pot up, and then I can, put these new plants later in the season into blank spaces that I have in my bank. I did say that this was a low maintenance plant, but there is of course no such thing as a no maintenance plant. And if you have Persicaria affinis on a bank, what you do need to do is weed. So certain weeds like scotch grass, or in my case brambles, will occasionally peek up through the Persicaria, the dense mat of the Persicaria, and you need to get up there and weed it. Oh, and just one final little tip: if you are planting a big bank of Persicaria affinis, put lots of plants at the very top, because while it does spread, it never spreads up, it always spreads down. The second Persicaria that I want to point out as my favourite to you today is Persicaria microcephala red dragon. And this is one that isn't grown for the flowers like the Persicaria affinis behind me, but it's rather grown for its amazing leaves. And if you're trying to get a jungle effect in your garden, then this really is the Persicaria for you. And you can see how the leaves have glorious red and, well, darker red shades on them, and they just look absolutely fabulous, and they're very large as well. Also, it's a clump forming plant. Now, I've read that it's supposed to run quite a bit, but in my experience it's been very well behaved and doesn't tend to do that at all. And now it remains for me to tell you how to grow this wonderful perennial. And as we heard, there are 131 different species and different types of cultivars of Persicaria, but there are some general rules that we can apply. So first of all, it likes sun or partial shade, and generally speaking it's unfussy for soil. Now, having said that, you saw that it does need some moisture, so if you plant Persicaria affinis on a dry bank like I've done behind me, then you may need to water in times of drought. It's hardy from zones 5 to 9, and possibly a bit hardier, so if you're going to buy a certain Persicaria, do look that particular one up online. And then in terms of maintenance, very low maintenance plant. Now, among the vast number of them out there, there are some that are quite the runner, let's just say. And Purple Fantasy, which I mentioned earlier, is one that I absolutely love, but it's a bit of a thug. So what I do is I plant it in a pot, so I sink the pot into the ground, but it does actually grow out over the edge of the pot, so every couple of years you need to dig it up and divide it, and then it's good to go again. It's not going to be a problem as long as you keep an eye on it. And of course we talked about maintenance of Persicaria affinis here behind me, where you are going to every spring assess where this plant is growing and do something about it. So if it runs into the back of your border, you're going to take that material out and use it as propagating material. And division is also easy, so you can do that in either spring or autumn to get more plants. Okay, I guess that kind of tumbles us on to the end of this video, which I hope you enjoyed, and I would encourage people to have a look for different types of Persicarias. There are so many out there, and so many of them are really good garden worthy plants. And if you've got an area that you want to cover in a short period of time, well, in a medium period of time, then perhaps you'll consider Persicaria affinis, or perhaps you'll consider some of the other beautiful foliage ones I mentioned earlier. Thank you very much for watching my month of perennials, this particular program being about Persicaria, which I know and love. And do check back for more in this series. Now, we're kind of running into autumn now, so you might actually have to wait until springtime to get more in this series, but it'll be worth waiting for. That's all for now. Bye!